Welcome everyone, my name is Damien Cairns and I am a Director of Innovating Schools. Innovating Schools partners with Australian companies that have innovative or clever products that are designed for the education sector. Today's webinar topic is preparing for the new enterprise agreement, and it is pleasing to see we have many schools represented here at today's webinar. So there's obviously a real interest in what is about to occur with the new agreement. I'm here with Marty Roden, who is the founder of School Data. School Data is a company that helps schools streamline the timetabling processes in order to unlock enormous benefits to their school, the teachers and its students. The bargaining phase is finished and an in-principle Victorian Government Schools agreement has been reached. Within schools, most people have read the headlines. A reduction in face-to-face teaching hours from 20 to 18.5 per week by the beginning of 2024 is at the centrepiece of the agreement. Although critics point out that the wage growth has declined from where it was with the previous agreement and being just about half what they've been in the previous agreement and also half the current rate of inflation. Marty, what's your take on the agreement?
Yeah, thanks very much, Damien, and thanks for hosting me today. Well, to drastically oversimplify the problem, I think more people would certainly get into teaching if the pay were better. There's no doubt about that. But once people have made the decision to that this is the right vocation for them and they want a career in education, we're still noticing that people are leaving the profession. And these people who are leaving the profession, they already knew what the pay was going to be when they got in, so they were okay, they were at peace with that. They're leaving the profession because of the workload. So this is because being a teacher is hard. It's hard work, and being a really good teacher is superhuman these days. So if this agreement was only going to address one of these two glaring issues, whether that's wage growth or workload, there's no doubt that teacher workload was the one that needed to be addressed, especially after the last couple of years that teachers have had throughout the pandemic.
So how have the schools responded to the news?
Yeah, it's fascinating. In my conversation with school leaders and also on more public forums and social media, the response from school leaders has been overwhelmingly positive. Certainly there have been reports that outline the fact that the increase from year to year in wages is disappointing, as you touched on before. I think 1% every 6 months, roughly half the rate of inflation, and inflation's growing. That I don't think anyone would argue that that's not a little problematic. But principals who, for the most part, are really tired after the last couple of years themselves, they've come out in full support of this, in full support of their troops, and in fierce agreement that teachers are overworked. It's not surprising though, these principals have seen really talented teachers leave the profession in droves over the last couple of years. Teaching used to offer a really good work-life balance, and that was why a lot of people got into the industry, but that advantage has certainly been stripped away over the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, so this will be expensive for schools, yeah?
This new agreement, it will be, so a reduction from 20 to 19 and then 18.5 hours face-to-face teaching per week could potentially be extraordinarily expensive for schools. If schools don't carefully plan for implementation of this agreement, they could certainly be caught out. If you think of it this way, a reduction from 20 to 18.5 hours per week face-to-face teaching is a 7.5% reduction in the time that teachers can spend in front of their students, in front of a class. If you take a decent sized school that employs about 100 people, this equates to, at face value, an increase in 8.1 teachers for a school that hires 100 full-time staff. 8.1 teachers is going to cost schools somewhere in the vicinity of $1 to $1.2 million year on year if they don't do some things to prepare for this agreement.
Okay, so what can schools do to make sure they're not bankrupted by this?
Well, the short answer is plan for it. I don't often give short answers, so I'll try to here. The short answer is plan for it. So you can review your period lengths, you can review your consultation processes, Develop a staffing strategy. Examine your resource pool and be strategic about examining and responding to areas of need. Consult with your staff and find out what the future holds in store for them. Often teachers will tell you exactly what they're planning on doing in the future, as long as consultation doesn't feel like it's just a means to an end. If you feel like if they feel as though the person consulting with them has genuine care and concern for their future, then teachers will certainly be more open in their conversations. And the more open teachers are in their conversations with school leaders, the more data the school has to actually plan for staffing classes into the future. So this gives schools the opportunity to develop a staffing strategy to ensure that they're more than adequately prepared for the next 3 to 5 years. At School Data, we've developed a planning module that allows you to create staff intentions forms. The forms are incredibly simple to create and customise and can be tweaked and reused year after year. This is just the tip of the iceberg for us, but school leaders responsible for staffing and operations are already telling us that this is a game changer in terms of planning. Here's why. Staff intentions forms are nothing new, but if you're using a Google form or Excel or printed forms, you end up with a glut of information. When you go to staff a maths class, you have to trawl through databases or pages of notes, or you can use find and replace and hope there are no spelling mistakes. In the School Data site, our planner grids utilise past trends, subject pre-selection forms, recommendations forms, attrition rates and so on to help you predict which classes will run next year as early as June. Then, when you go to staff these predicted classes in June or July, the site actually tells you who wants to teach the class, who has taught it before, and who is qualified to teach it. So rather than rifling through pages and pages of notes or Google Docs and trying to remember that Jenny really wants to teach biology next year, the site actually reminds you at the point in time that you need to know this. And while you're staffing these planner classes, the site is actually building loads for you. So when subject selection day rolls around, you simply need to run a fetch to grab all this data from the planner grid. A bit of tweaking and polishing and your provisional loads should be ready to send to teachers in August or early September, not November.
Wow, there's a lot to process there. That staffing module looks as though it could save schools countless hours in preparing their timetable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it also provides a framework, as I was talking about before, for staff consultation. So staff get to get the subjects that they want to teach because they've been consulted. They get their subjects more often than they potentially had in the past. In turn, they feel more satisfied with the consultation process and they feel more satisfied in their place of employment. Most of all, the automation frees up the deputy principal for staff to actually have meaningful conversations with staff in order to find out how they're going generally day to day and in every sense. So teachers stop feeling, as we talked about before, they stop feeling like consultation is just a means to an end.
You also mentioned responding to areas of need. How does the site help you to analyse what exactly your areas of need are?
Yeah, well, the first thing we do when a school makes contact with us is we ask them to send us a copy of their timetable. We take that timetable and we run what we call a timetable health check on their timetable data. We do this free of charge, and this it's also completely obligation free. So 5 minutes later, after you've sent us your timetable, we send back this health check, and this health check, the report, is it's a document, a HTML document that contains everything that you need to know about your timetable. So we're talking the senior subjects that have the highest FTE per teacher, for example. So you know that if one of these teachers leaves next year, that you might be in trouble and need to replace that. It also tells you which areas might need bolstering in terms of your staffing plan. Average class sizes by year, average class sizes by faculty as well, so you can find out how you're tracking against where you'd like to be, and every business manager, I think, has an idea of exactly where they'd like to be in terms of their average class sizes across the school and from year to year. We can also tell you the percentage of classes that are tied up in multi-class groups or blocks. This is basically the variable that tells you whether you're going to be able to shuffle loads when, say, for example, the specialist teacher who teaches Systems engineering and Indonesian retires in December.
So that report we just looked at is free?
Yep, absolutely free, absolutely obligation free as well. And when schools do sign up for the school data application, we'll not only be producing these reports every year, so they send us next year's timetable and we send them another report 5 minutes later, but once they've got a couple of timetables in the site, we can actually run trend analyses on their data. So this basically means that we can analyse the direction that your school is heading as far as enrolments, average class sizes, class blocks, trends, attrition rates are concerned.
Well, it sounds as though schools would be mad not to take up the offer of a free health check. And then it's up to them whether they follow up with you to look at a site licence if they want to streamline and centralise their timetabling processes. Is there anything else worth mentioning to this site that the site can do?
Yeah, there are plenty of things that the site can do. Rather than rattling off a shopping list of things that the site can do, I might just inform you of one thing that we've built just to whet the appetite. I'd like you to bear in mind two things when viewing this. The first is that we're keen to come out to your school to give you a tour of the site and all its features. So you don't need to memorise everything I'm going to mention here or everything I've memorised in the past. Secondly, to give you an idea of what's coming, I'd like to explain quickly who we are. So I am a full-time timetabling consultant. We've got full stack programmers, coders. We've got a mathematician who's coming across from the cybersecurity field at a massive company that you have definitely heard of. And we also now have a quantum physicist who regularly consults to us. So with that in mind, here is just one feature that we have finished and we are unveiling this year. So when I build an exam timetable, it only takes a couple of hours. The roster, however, can take 20 to 25 hours. This is because classes might still be running at other year levels, bell times might not align with supervision sessions, and a range of other factors. Our passion is streamlining and automating, if possible. So we've built an exam roster generator that builds the roster that took me 20 hours by hand in about a minute and a half.
A minute and a half.
Yep, that's right.
So let's recap. In summary, what should school leaders be doing?
Yeah, great question. Well, there are essentially, in order of importance, there are 5 things that school leaders could be doing right now. The first 4 that I'll talk about, I think really enhance a positive culture in the school and in the staff room. The first thing that school leaders can start doing today is they can start having conversations with their staff, start speaking to their staff, having deep, meaningful conversations to find out how their staff are going. And as I discussed earlier, this will lead staff to be more open about what their plans are for the future. Secondly, a little more systematically, build a staff intentions form. And if you are a client, then you can build the staff intentions form in our site and it will inform your grids later on further down the track. If you're not a client, build a staff intentions form, get the data from the teachers, find out what they're planning on doing in the future a little more formally. Next, again, if you are a client, build a staff qualification survey. Now, essentially, when this new agreement takes effect, it's highly unlikely that teachers are going to be so flushed with cash that that schools are going to be so flushed, not teachers, certainly, that schools are going to be able to hoard physics teachers for a rainy day or anything like that. So you're going to need to have, schools are definitely going to need to have really kind of well thought out, carefully constructed staffing strategies, and the staff qualification survey is the thing that is going to allow school leaders to, when they get a bit stuck and they're trying to staff that year 10 French class, for example, they'll be able to see at the tips of their fingers, essentially, who is qualified to teach this class. Fourth, and it kind of dovetails nicely into that one, is construct a staffing strategy. So actually have written down somewhere your strategy for responding to staffing needs. Find out what your staffing needs are over the next 1, 3, 5 years, and actually have a strategy in place perhaps within specific learning areas to respond to those areas of need over the coming years. So they're the four that can really, as I said, enhance a positive culture, because they really do involve consultation, real meaningful consultation. The fifth, the final one, as I touched on briefly, and I've touched on in a couple of articles I've written, period lengths. Having a look at streamlining period lengths. Yes, absolutely. If period lengths is the only thing that you focus on in response to this agreement, that could be seen as potentially operating outside the spirit of the agreement, just cutting back face-to-face hours, but there's no need to leave inefficient period lengths or period length structures in place. So maybe you need as a result of this, maybe you need a timetabling review. I would always urge schools to remember that timetabling, like me, are servants in equal measures to the students and to the executive branch of the school. And so it's not the place of the timetabler or a timetabling review to say, here is the structure you must use. It must be responsive essentially to the wish of the curricular branch of the school. So keep in mind that a timetabling review may necessitate a curricular review. Any alteration to period lengths is going to mean alterations to the length of the day, and therefore alterations to the number of minutes per cycle that certain subjects get. And this means that any period length review is going to necessitate a curricular review to some degree.
Yeah, thank you. I'll check to see if we've got questions come through, but in the meantime, just if a school wants to sign up, Marty, when should I get the ball rolling?
Yeah, there's no bad time to sign up, but certainly waiting until June or July can put the school under a little bit of pressure, because essentially what's going to happen there is you're going to be trying to create your staff intentions forms. Sign up today, create your staff intentions form tomorrow. Getting all your data in the site prior to about the middle of May would be a great idea to ensure that schools are comfortable using the site before they need to start building surveys in the site. Similarly, signing up in September during peak timetabling season would probably not be the ideal time. I think signing up at a time where you've got a little bit of clear air is probably preferable for all schools.
Right, okay, great. Now, I should let everyone know that they're welcome to ask a question if they have any out there. But just there's another one that comes to mind. Is it time consuming to set up the process?
Not at all. In fact, that's the timetable health check that I mentioned before essentially does several things in one go. Not only does it give you an overview of the picture of the health of your timetable, but it also, if you give us the go-ahead and you want to sign up to a license, then we can use that timetable file that you send through to set up all of your setup tables and your current grid, which actually essentially means that the moment you send us your timetable file and sign up for a license, we can have your site data ready for you to start creating surveys within the day.
Oh, great. Okay. So look, welcome to ask any questions, but I guess, we're probably coming to we're near that 4:30 mark, which we promised we'd do just a 30-minute quick overview. So really, there's no reason why a school wouldn't want to just at least get the health check done. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the health check, as I said a couple of times earlier, is completely obligation free and completely free of charge. So yeah, it's a great way, I think, for schools just to get an initial indication as to whether this this agreement, this impending agreement, is going to hold any surprises in store for them. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And if they want to get a testimonial, or I know you've got a few here on the banner, but if they want to have a chat to some schools that are using school data, that they can do that?
Absolutely. I noticed in the list of schools who have signed up for this webinar that there are plenty of new schools, which is absolutely fantastic. That's great that the message is starting to get out there about our capabilities, but there's still a connection between most of those schools and schools who we have currently as clients. So I'm sure that aside from, as you mentioned, the 3 schools who are on the banner here, we have another 7 or 8 schools who we work very closely with, who have clients who have signed up, who I'm sure would be more than happy to provide testimonials to anyone who's thinking about signing up.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Marty. I'm just looking at these. I think you've either answered everybody's questions or they haven't come up with any, but certainly either give Marty or myself a call or an email, and we'll be happy to get the ball rolling for everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Damien. And I should also mention that we've got, we do have training seminars completely free of charge. I know that a lot of companies like to sign people up to expensive licenses and then charge them for training as well. I'm not entirely sure how they can justify that, but we have free training seminars coming up in about a month, just over a month from now. And so anyone, I suppose, who does feel as though they'd like to make contact and sign up to a license can come along to those seminars and see how to set up data in the site. I'm also running a couple of timetable reviews as well. So I'm gathering more and more data. I've got, 15 or 20 schools who I speak to regularly now. So even if schools just want to give me a call to find out what other schools are doing, I wouldn't name any names, but confidentially, I'm sure that there's certain areas of information that I'm privy to now that could certainly benefit schools if they had access to that information.
Thank you. Well, I'll call the webinar to a formal close, but if anyone wants to stay on and have a chat to Marty, I'm more than welcome to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Damien.